Who could have thought that behind this girl's angelic facade lies a hardened criminal? Despite her delicate appearance, she's a 4-year veteran of a Russian women's prison, where she's mastered skills like operating a sewing machine, tending to cattle, and raising pigs. It's almost impossible to believe that these delicate hands are now responsible for clearing animal waste. Labor is just a standard procedure for their inmate reformation. If prisoners step out of line, the guards show no mercy, handing out severe beatings or confining inmates in isolation cells without any regard for their gender. In the unforgiving landscape of Russia's Ural Mountains, a women's prison houses 420 inmates, many of whom are strikingly beautiful. Before their sentences, these women were infamous figures in the underworld, engaged in every imaginable crime from burglary, armed robbery, and murder to arson and drug smuggling. But once inside these prison walls, they've been transformed into docile lambs, waking up at the crack of dawn without a hint of complaint. They're up and active at 6:30 a.m., bracing the bitter cold as they perform group exercises in temperatures plunging to -8 degrees Celsius, following the trainer's instructions to the letter. It's a time-honored tradition in the prison, mandatory for any inmate who's able to move, conducted unwaveringly for half an hour each day. This rosy-cheeked woman is the prison warden, and at 42, she's been dealing with female inmates for over 2 decades. She confides that the minds of female prisoners are more difficult to understand than their male counterparts. But even so, she insists a single glance is enough for her to tell if an inmate harbors any thoughts of escape. The entire prison is encased by high walls with razor-sharp barbed wire omnipresent. Female guards, each leading a fierce guard dog, patrol the perimeter multiple times a day, inspecting the fences for any signs of damage. And let's not forget about the state-of-the-art surveillance system providing 360-degree coverage without any blind spots. The prison carries out roll calls 2 to 3 times a day, so naturally, escape for these women seems nearly impossible. After their morning exercises, the inmates line up to have breakfast at the cafeteria, feasting on food like bread and cheese, all prepared by fellow inmates. Once they've had their fill, the guards perform an inspection of the utensils to prevent any forks or knives from being repurposed as weapons. Afterwards, they don their standard cotton uniforms and, led by the guards, march in formation to their respective work locations. The prison offers a wealth of job options to its inmates, from operating sewing machines in the factory to raising pigs and cattle on the farm, or even preparing meals in the kitchen. To prevent contraband weapons or drugs from being smuggled in with the food, the inmates are only allowed to consume bread produced within the prison itself. Victoria, an 18-year-old, serves as a baker in the prison kitchen. Despite her young age, she has already had her fair share of prison bread over the last 4 years. When asked about her criminal past, Victoria, with her innocent, wide-eyed gaze, keeps her explanation rather brief. She recounts a time when her mother had a new boyfriend. One day, they had a disagreement, and the boyfriend struck her mother. Victoria tried to intervene, but things took a fatal turn when her intervention resulted in the man's death. Due to her young age at the time of the crime, Victoria was sentenced to 6 years of detention in a juvenile facility, housing 200 young female inmates. Meet Nastya, an exemplary inmate in this prison. Now 30 years old, she is serving her 3rd sentence. Nastya was sentenced to 6 years for drug trafficking, and she's halfway through her term. She is confined in the 2nd zone of the prison, among over 80 inmates, most of whom, like her, are recidivists. 50 of them are convicted on drug-related offenses. Though she seems harmless, she was once an undisputed drug lord and a godmother in a local mafia. The goods she operated almost monopolized the entire underground market of the Urals, even carving a place for herself in Moscow. The psychological shift from ruling the underworld to being confined in a mundane cell would have broken many, but Nastya remains unperturbed. She claims that fame and fortune are ephemeral. Compared to her previous life of living on the edge in constant danger, she finds her current life fulfilling. In an attempt to pay for her sins, she is diligently working as a seamstress in the prison's tailoring shop. Her days are spent tirelessly weaving fabric, pushing her sewing machine to the limits. The final products, including jackets, coats, and custom attire for hunters and fishermen, are sold to a clothing company via the prison's network. Nastya earns approximately 3,000 rubles, roughly $40 per month. She keeps only a quarter for herself, sending most of it to her parents and her 13-year-old son. While her current income is nowhere near what she earned as a drug trafficker, She is relieved from the constant dread of her former life. She maintains her routine, wakes up early, goes to work on time, avoids causing trouble for the prison guards, and even sports a stylish haircut. She participates enthusiastically in the prison's cultural programs, earning praise even from the prison warden. Interestingly, Nastia doesn't feel lonely, as many of her co-inmates were once her subordinates. For instance, the sweet-looking girl with green eyes was her trusted lieutenant. Her name is Tajana, and she's 23 years old. Born into an affluent family, she never had to worry about food and clothing. But sadly, at the age of 18, she was lured into the smuggling and drug trafficking industry by her friends. At the peak of Tajana's criminal career, she earned a net income of 50,000 rubles a month, which is equivalent to $600. For the viewers watching this, it may just be a few meals worth. But for these inmates who mostly hail from impoverished regions of Russia, it's a considerable income. Inevitably, even after serving her sentence, she will likely not be able to escape the clutches of the drug lords. Working on the prison farm is seemingly a tough assignment compared to sewing or baking. Inmates have to endure the constant unpleasant smells from cowsheds and pig pens, taking on labor-intensive duties such as feed preparation, waste disposal, milking, and breeding. The only slight consolation might be knowing they're raising livestock for the nation. Ultimately, all the beef and pork produced here find their way into military stores, potentially appearing as rations on the battlefield. For inmates who refuse to follow rules, the prison doesn't hesitate to enforce solitary confinement, locking them up in a sealed cell located in the basement. The place is cramped, damp, and run down, with an 8-square-meter space potentially housing 4 inmates simultaneously. To prevent further mischief, all the furniture, including tables, chairs, and beds, are bolted to the ground. The beds can be folded away when not in use. The cell features 2 worn-out cabinets, a sink, and a squat toilet, demonstrating the extent of its Spartan conditions. During this punitive period, this small confinement cell is the entirety of the inmates' world, with all of their daily activities confined within. Guard Andre reports that they conduct random cell checks, sometimes leading to physical altercations with recalcitrant inmates. Under such stringent measures, female inmates are compelled to reform. However, the prison also exhibits a more humane side. Inmates with exemplary behavior can earn the privilege of family visits, which they can apply for once every 3 months. The prison provides a dedicated visitation area, with secure private bedrooms ensuring the privacy of the inmates. Each room has 2 single beds, a separate kitchen and bathroom, along with amenities such as a refrigerator, TV, microwave, and iron. As long as they abide by the rules, inmates can enjoy 3 days of family bonding time. Across the vast territory of Russia, there are a total of 35 women's prisons, incarcerating over 60,000 female inmates. According to the law, as the guards have explained, the maximum sentence for women, regardless of their crimes, is 20 years. Within the prison system, they are provided with basic amenities. By contrast, male convicts aren't so fortunate. The more serious their crimes, the harsher the conditions they face. For instance, the hardships endured by inmates in prisons like the Fire Island Penitentiary or the Black Dolphin Prison are beyond description. Why is there such a distinct difference in the treatment of inmates within Russia's prison system? Please share your thoughts in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like our content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.